All right, guys. So we're heading into Stave 5, which is the end of it. Scrooge wakes up in his room. He realizes that everything is still in its place. The curtains are still there. The gruel is still there. Everything was as he left it. And so he's excited because he's not, as he says, the bed curtains aren't torn down, rings and all, and he's still alive. And it's, he doesn't know what day it is. But of course he's exuberant because he has a chance to make changes in his life. And he goes to the window, opens it up. He doesn't know what day it is. He just knows it's morning, and there are bells ringing, and he hollers to this one little boy down there to ask what day it is. He says, well, it's Christmas Day. He's like, well, I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Well, of course they can. They can do anything they like, right? So he asks about if he knows the poulterer on the next corner but one, just around the street, around the corner there, if they've sold the prize turkey, this very large turkey. And the boy says, well, no, it's still there. He said, well, go and buy it. And of course the kid's like, what? Are you crazy? He says, no, I'm in earnest. I'm serious. Go buy it, bring them here. I'll give you a little bit of money, nice little coin, if you'll do it really quickly. And so the boy takes off, and Scrooge is excited. He's trying to get himself dressed. The poulterer's man shows up with the turkey. It was a big, big turkey. In fact, he said it was so big that it couldn't stand up on its two legs. It would snap like sticks of sealing wax, which is the wax they use to seal up documents and stuff. So it's big turkey. He sends it to Bob Cratchit's house. He pays for a cab for the guy to take it over to him to Camden Town. And Scrooge is he's just so happy. He goes about the town. He wishes everybody Merry Christmas. Talks to people. He then runs into the two gentlemen who came to his office to ask for donations. Now we know what he said to both of them. Some pretty horrible things about people dying. Well, if they're going to die, then let them do it and decrease the surplus population. Pretty awful things. So the men, he says, well, good morning. It was very good what you were doing. And the men were like, Mr. Scrooge, like, we don't want to talk to you. And he says, yes, I am. He says, I'm afraid that name is bad. So to you, that it's not pleasant. So he says, do me a favor. And he whispers in his ear and about the donation he's going to make to their cause to help the poor. And of course the man, we don't know how much Scrooge gave, but the response tells us everything. That the man is like, oh good gosh. He's like, Mr. Scrooge, are you serious? So it must be a pretty big amount if you ask him if he's serious. And he says, not a farthing less. There's many back payments in that. So Scrooge makes amends for the years that he did not give to help the poor. And he gives nothing. He said, well, come and see me. And they're very excited because, it's obviously a large number. I think it's important that we not know how much it was because it's none of our business how much it is. But we can kind of guess how much, maybe 100 pounds. I don't know. That was a lot of money in those days. I don't know. We can speculate, but it doesn't matter. Big amount. He then goes to, he walks around the streets, he talks to people, he looks into windows of bakers who are working, he talks to beggars on the street and questions them and asks how they're doing, and everything gave him pleasure. And he said he just missed out all these years. Then he ends up at Fred's house, because remember he was invited to the party, the dinner, and he has to walk by a few times, like half a dozen times or so, or maybe a dozen times before he actually goes in. He talks to the servant girl who lets him in, and he sticks his head into the door, and he's like, Fred, and Fred's like, who's that? He's like, it's your Uncle Scrooge. I would like to come to dinner if I can. He's like, absolutely, and everything was great. The party was great. All his friends were there. The party was exactly the way that he saw it with the Ghost of Christmas Present, apart from them making fun of him in the game of yes and no, which is pretty funny. So after Christmas Day, then of course the next day is a work day. So he shows up early to the office. He wants to catch Bob Cratchit before he gets there. Bob's 18 and a half minutes late. As he said, I was making rather merry yesterday. It won't be repeated. And Scrooge starts feigning or acting like his old self. And he's like, I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer, He says, step in here. And of course, Bob is ready to get sacked, as the English say, or get fired, right? And that would be devastating to the Cratchits because they have to have his income. But Scrooge does, and he says, I'm not going to stand for this thing stand for this sort of thing any longer, and therefore I'm going to raise your salary. Bob Cratchit is so shocked by his laughing and doing that, he thinks he's gone crazy. So he reaches over for the ruler and thinks about hitting Scrooge in the head and then calling for people to come help restrain him. He thought he's gone crazy. But it's a beautiful moment when he starts laughing and he tells Bob Merry Christmas, and Bob realizes he's being 100% serious. He says, I will do everything I can I'm going to raise your salary. I'm going to help your struggling family. And then we're going to have discuss the particulars over a bowl of smoking bishop, which is a type of drink that smokes when you heat it up. So, and at the end it says that, Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he became a second father. He became as good a man, as good a master, and as good a friend as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. And 'twas always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possessed the knowledge, may that truly be said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one. So we tend to focus, when people think of Scrooge, and I think this is an important theme here, that people can change. Sometimes we don't think they can, but I think they can. And people do change. So when you think of Scrooge, people often, when I ask you, who's Ebenezer Scrooge? Oh, it's this horrible old man. He said these horrible things. He was terrible to the poor. He was a miser, parsimonious. I mean, he held on to all his money. Had these opportunities in life, but just gave them up because he was in love with his money, which is true. But maybe our focus should be on the changed Scrooge, the Scrooge who raised Bob's salary, who reconciled with his nephew, his only living relative, his sister's son, who made sure that Tiny Tim got the medical help that he could, the man who gave money to help the poor, who changed. That is the Scrooge we should be looking at, and we don't ever do it. Even myself, I catch myself laughing at Scrooge, how horrible he is, right? And over the years, I've just kind of looked past that point, that what Ebenezer Scrooge did. So it's an interesting dichotomy. It's an interesting changed mix between the characters. That's why I love the book so much. It has just a great message. And so that is Stave 4, or Stave 5, excuse me, the end of it. Scrooge changes his ways, and we don't know how much longer he lived, but we know that he lived long enough to, as it says, become as good a man, as good a master, as the good old city knew. That's a wonderful thing. So that's Stave 5.